Hey guys, Josh here with Wired Watt Smart. Today's guest is Tyler Hicks. He is a outside sales rep and former branch manager at Stoneway Electric Supply here in Yakima. Tyler actually happens to be my best friend since high school as well. So, I mean, that relationship goes way back. But we're here to talk about how the electrical distribution side of the industry and the electrical contracting side of the industry, how we kind of work in tandem. And we're just gonna have a conversation about some of the ways we help each other and how Tyler brings a ton of value and Stoneway brings a ton of value to Watt Smart Electric. So I'm gonna let Tyler introduce himself.
Hey everybody, this is Tyler Hicks. So in my past experiences, I was actually out in the field like Josh. I was out in the field for close to 4 years out doing residential, light commercial, doing that type of stuff. My personality kind of drove me towards the distribution side for customer service, wanting to interact with people. The jobs, I still loved the electrical, but it seemed like I like the customer service being in front of people. So
Okay.
it was a decent transition going from out in the field to distribution because you kind of know the ins and outs and the slang of the electrical world, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So
And prior to doing the electrical work, you've done a lot of blue collar stuff, right? Like
yes,
tell me about that stuff. Because in high school, I know you were working on cars and you worked at like
I
Chevron and stuff.
really started in the automotive and actually kind of thought I was going to go automotive. I started at a automotive shop just doing the basic stuff, helping out an automotive guy, and then kind of got pretty far into that and then worked for another shop. Um, and got to actually really mechanic on cars and kind of liked that for a long time.
Yeah, yeah,
And then having a background, my dad's a general contractor, so then kind of got into the contractor world, and that's where I was stuck until I got into electrical. I was framing houses, working on construction type stuff,
yeah, yeah.
and a local electrical contractor kind of fished me out a little bit, knowing that I knew construction, and it's kind of a good hands-on way to be electrician.
Absolutely.
Knowing how to use a drill and a hammer to hammer nails in or whatever else you use. It's not just all about the electrical theory. There's a lot of hands-on, at least in the residential side of it.
Yeah, obviously, right? And just knowing how a job is built and how it's constructed from the ground up. I mean, you have to know all those things, I mean, to do electrical work too, right?
Right.
I
It's
mean,
definitely the hands-on
yeah,
for sure.
yeah. Right on. So you did like 4 years as an electrical apprentice. I
Yep.
know you have a pretty good grasp on the parts and the pieces and the process. And then so then you kind of went to work at Stoneway and you've been there ever since, right?
Yes. So I've been at Stoneway for 20 years and I started from the ground up. There wasn't really a spot for me when I started there. I just wanted a change with more people interaction and wanted a solid type of work atmosphere. With
Yeah.
electrical, I was all over the place and it maybe just didn't fit my personality. So going into electrical, I started in the warehouse. So started right at the bottom.
Yeah.
So starting at the bottom, you learn about all the parts because you got to put them away. And then you learn about deliveries going out on the job sites. So you get that beginning step of how like a distributor works for all the electrical parts. You start at the bottom. So it
Yeah.
started there and then worked up into counter sales. And that's where I got my first taste of like that true customer interaction, trying to find parts for customers.
Right.
So that's what kind of hooked me is in the beginning of being a counter sales guy, having contractor like WattSmart come in and give you a list of material and you got to go find it either on the shelf or find it at a manufacturer or cross items. And that was the interest to me that kind of,
Right.
I think, hooked me in the industry.
So you're on the counter there for a while. At what point did you get into, because I know you've done gear design for me. You've also done lighting design. I mean, you've done all kinds of design work for us, but like at what point did you kind of start dipping your toes into like the switchboard design and gear design and stuff?
So I was fast paced. I only worked in the warehouse for maybe a year, went straight to counter, and it was only another year or two before I was already inside sales doing project quotations. So I went deep in the weeds right out of the beginning of quoting full size schools down to design builds for customers and
Yeah.
V packages. So I did gear quotation and lighting and pretty much everything, but I was project based. So I did all the takeoffs with customers and did
Yeah.
that for Stoneway until about 11 years ago when I became the branch manager there. So up to that point, I was doing just inside sales on projects.
Yeah.
So building
And
gear. And
then I mean, once you became manager, I mean, I was still utilizing you all the time
yep.
for, lighting design, switchboard design. I mean, when you're a manager, you were still kind of wearing all those hats. I mean, and obviously like we're friends, and so you would obviously like help me out because we're buddies, but you were doing that for all your customers, right?
I was doing it for everybody. Not that I felt like I was going to forget it, but I felt like if I stayed too far out of it, then I may lose my edge of maybe knowing. I mean, I tried to retain all the information over all these years, and being involved with the customers still at the management level, I think helped me retain all the old information plus all the new information.
Yeah.
Our industry is changing. I mean, yearly there's so many changes. To stay up to date with all that and do the calls and build the gear and do a lot of that, just be more hands-on, I guess, as a manager was kind of my style.
Yeah.
I
And
wanted to be more involved and not just pushing paper, I guess.
yeah, and still kind of have a pulse on what the industry's doing, right? Like, the trends and what manufacturers are doing. So you kind of mentioned it, a VEI. So value engineering packages. Like, let's talk about that. And to somebody who's listening that doesn't know what that is, a lot of these spec projects have, a design plan from an architect or an engineer. It could be overspec'd. It could be, there's all kinds of things it could be, right? Well, when you value engineer something, that's like the contractor and a guy like Tyler kind of coming up with an alternative plan, right? To like what an engineer has done.
Right.
Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, so typically in the very beginning stages, and it's usually way before you quote a project, you'll have I'll talk about lighting because it's the easiest one to talk about, where a lighting manufacturer will sit down with an architect or engineer and maybe an owner, and they will select all the fixtures, maybe they go on a whole project. And it's easier to kind of high side the fixtures because you get all the options. You get the color finishes and the high CRI and
Yeah.
all the really good stuff so that you can know that at the end product is going to be really what the customer wants. And then when it comes down to it, with funding, I mean, an owner typically doesn't know what the whole project's going to be until they go out to quote for it.
Right.
So once we go to quote stage, then we do a value engineer, so a VE package, and we try to specify as close to what was specified, but sometimes you can just get a little bit less. Maybe the CRI can change, or the fixture manufacturer can change to save
Thousands.
usually big dollars on a
Yeah.
project if we value engineer it.
Yeah.
So that it's all about still staying with a good product for the customer and for the owner, but find something that's maybe less expensive, maybe a little bit less options. The finishes can change.
Yeah.
Um,
But still a good comparable product though, right?
right, exactly.
Yeah, and
Exactly.
that's where I've landed, a lot of jobs is by coming in with, a value engineered package and saying, "Hey, this stuff is just as good. We stand behind it. The manufacturer stands behind it,
Yes.
but it's 30% cheaper."
Right.
And yeah, I mean that's an area where there's just a lot of jobs can be landed with those packages, and having a guy to help you design those and price those is valuable.
Right. And you definitely have to be you definitely want to look at when you're doing value engineered packages is make sure you really align with an engineer too, because there's times where valued engineer is not going to work because they want maybe a special lighting control package.
Right.
Sometimes those lighting control packages will not dim or maybe control the lights like they wanted
Like they're
to for.
spec'd. Yeah.
Exactly. So you definitely, if you go down the VE road, you want to work with your contractor, work with the owners, work with engineers, and make sure that that's going to work basically for the end user customer. The customer at the end, that's the one that actually gets these jobs, and you want to walk away from these jobs and know that they have a good, solid lighting package or gear package
Yeah,
or
absolutely.
whatever's for the
Yeah.
project. So
Right on. So tell me about like Stoneway's, or I mean, I guess any electrical distribution house. Like, what does that model look like, right? Like the typical homeowner guy will go to Home Depot and buy all of his stuff, over the counter. But as a contractor, we're dealing with, the Stoneways, the Platts, the CEDs. Now, you guys go out and you guys have negotiated stuff with manufacturers, right?
right,
And
yes,
so like you guys are the Stoneway and Yakima, you guys are Square D. And
yes.
so you guys have special relationships with all these different vendors, right?
Yes, every manufacturer, you want to align, usually with manufacturers, we call it, there's different ways to call, but we're Premier Square D, so we only sell Square D. We get preferential treatment because we're only Square D, right? If you had
Right.
all of the 4 manufacturers, then they know that, you're not a true partner with them, so it's always, and every distributor's like that. We always want to partner with the people that partner with us best, or with our models. Every distributor will maybe have a little bit different model, but we, as Stoneway, just try to partner with good reputable manufacturers usually.
Yeah, and that's why like you guys have Leviton and then House B might have Pass and Seymour. So
Right.
you guys pick the brands that you guys partner with,
Right.
and that's how you guys get
Right.
get the pricing tiers and the service and
Yes.
all that stuff.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. What other big brands are you guys
So
pushing down there?
so at Stoneway, we're doing, like, our largest line would be Square D, obviously. So
Yeah,
we do Square D, and then we would do most of the lighting lines. I mean, at least the large tier lighting lines, the Acuity and the Cooper and the
right.
larger lines. Wire is going to be the larger lines. We try to stay with the main manufacturers, your Encores, your Southwires. Um, Fittings and all that can be, I feel like over the years,
Can be a range.
yeah, that the
Yeah,
commodities I think change with every distributor, just depending on who's making what deals, right? I
yeah,
mean, and our product can sometimes be different. You were saying about Home Depot and stuff. So it's just like your standard lawnmower that you buy one place like Home Depot, and then you go to the distributor that's the, say, the John Deere, the Husqvarna dealer, and you can't find the right part number. So in our industry and distributors, we have sometimes actually different part numbers
uh-huh,
than like your Home Depot will have. They'll have a proprietary Home Depot version of a bathroom fan, maybe a name brand, maybe a Braun or Panasonic, but
right.
there's numbers different in it, and it can be a different speed motor, or maybe it's a little bit louder. There's just different
Gotcha.
things there. So
So there's different things there as to why it might be a little cheaper there versus
exact.
like buying direct
Yep.
from
We get
it,
that feedback all the time that
yeah,
sometimes we may be a little bit higher, but we're running, maybe it's against a Panasonic and we have a 3-speed motor, ball bearing motor, low sones, which is the noise of the fan. And then
right.
Home Depot will have a way different part number. Well, it's a 2-speed motor and it's
It's
not
a little
variable
cheaper.
speed and
Yeah,
it's less expensive.
yeah, that makes sense.
So we're
That
not
makes
going
sense.
apples to apples, but
Yeah, and
usually distributors are trying to stock. We don't buy from third tier, so we buy directly from the manufacturer. So we have the true catalog SKU numbers.
okay, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. So so walk me through just one of your days, man. You're balancing between calling on customers and getting quotes out.
Right.
What's a normal day look like for you?
It is definitely a balancing act. So you want to make sure there's just a lot of influx of just requests, right? You have your standard quotes all day long, which is just your basic customers. If you have a handful of customers that you're assigned to, you're going to take all their emails and all their calls and try to filter those either to yourself or to an inside salesperson.
Right.
Uh, So you filter that first. And then next, if you have time during the day, I mean, my days, like, I start in the morning and I go through calls, emails, trying to make sure I catch up from anything from the day before, and then just filter those as they go throughout the day. But then the other stuff is just trying to manage the accounts. So you want to there's a lot of other stuff behind the scenes, of there's pricing and there's training. There's just a lot of other stuff that you're trying to get the edge to make sure you're taking care of your contractors. So
Yeah.
you try to, like, a lot amounts of time during the day where you can, hey, I'm going to go after this customer and see if I can find some training or get them better pricing on spas or whatever it is. So I try to set aside at least a couple hours a day to, like, look through my customers and see where I have options to maybe get them better pricing. So that's
Yeah.
like almost a daily thing of just trying to make sure we're staying competitive.
So like if you have a day where, you've blown through all your calls and you've kind of called on everybody
Yep.
and you have some time, an extra 3 or 4 hours or whatever, like you're utilizing that time to go to bat for customers, right?
I have to.
Like,
I
like,
set aside time every single day for it.
yeah. So you're looking for trainings, you're just pretty much looking for ways to bring value to your customers so they want
Yes.
to use you, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and that's huge, man. I mean, that's so big to be able to, pencil out time to just bring value to your contractors. I mean, I think that's something that's probably grossly overlooked.
Yeah, because in the distributor world, we don't sell by labor or anything else, right? We sell a widget. So there's just no other way to capture margin or money besides just selling an item.
Yeah.
So we have to be as creative as we can and try to save our customers money so we can build partnerships.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. So let's talk about COVID. Like that was such a weird time in electrical, getting parts, getting pieces, getting gear. Like just for the people who are listening, what was your take on COVID?
So COVID made, at least from my take for electrical distributors, it made it way harder just to do everyday business. So prior to COVID, everybody was working in offices. Everybody was like locally based. Parts were more readily available. So you could call your XYZ manufacturer and look for parts, look for availability. There was always stuff on back order. There was lead times and stuff that were always that way, but that was pretty normal.
Yeah.
After COVID, a lot of people had to go home and work and they haven't been back to the office. And I don't have anything against people working from home, but it's definitely slowed the sales process down.
Yeah.
It seems like it used to be a lot faster on a sales process. And now your sales process is there's just different, there's more points to a sales process and it definitely takes longer now.
Yeah, and during COVID, like, you couldn't even get a hold of some of these people, right? Like, people were home working working from home, and
Right.
you're trying to get answers, and you're trying to get ship dates, and I remember several times where it's like you couldn't even get a ship date on stuff.
Right.
And then, let's talk about, like, what happened with the pipeline of all of our parts, right? Like, the gear and breakers and stuff was the stuff that was affected mostly, but, I mean, there's some stuff that was they were saying, what, 2 years out at one point?
At one point, transformers and large gear, it was because of all the copper and metal and a lot of stuff that goes into it. And a lot of those big plants, maybe prior to COVID, had people side by side working, right? So you
Yeah,
have people side by side in a manufacturing facility and they're cranking out with still lead times. And then COVID hits and you have to put distance between everybody. There's outbreaks which shut facilities down. And if they're
yeah,
pumping out a million breakers a day in a facility, and then now you have to spread people out, and then they have shutdowns. It was just a really bad snowball effect. It just really, and I think it took years. I still feel like some manufacturers are still suffering a little bit from
yeah.
from what happened during COVID.
Yeah, because prior to COVID, like, let's give, like, a relatable example, uh, an 800 amp panel board, right? Like, prior to COVID was something, if you were gonna have Square D build that, and don't quote me on this, you're gonna know better, but I feel like you could have something like that in, like, 10 days.
Yes,
It's
100%.
it's like, "Hey, all the parts and pieces are at the plant in Mexico or the one in Chino.
Yep.
We're gonna put the order in," like, you
We
know
we had almost, besides like large incoming switchboards for like large facilities, your standard parts from Schneider and we know from Eaton or from anybody else. I mean, I stay pretty in tune with all the other manufacturers. Everybody was running smooth on all your. It became almost a commodity. Your standard
Yeah,
panel boards and everything were almost a commodity. We could get those factory built. Anything you wanted was within a couple weeks. It
yeah.
was pretty standard.
And then COVID hits, plants are shut down, pretty much the world shuts down,
Right.
right, for, like, that first month or whatever it was, and then when everybody goes back to work, everybody buys up the shit that's on the shelves, and then it's like any orders that are going in or any projects, I mean, it was one excuse after the other, right? It was like, "Oh, well, we don't have the aluminum for the bus bars, we don't have the copper," and then it went from that to, "Well, we don't have the steel to make the cabinets," and it was very frustrating.
I saw with multiple manufacturers where in the very beginning of COVID, you had we'll call it the toilet paper effect. People bought everything that they could buy. There was people maybe that had, big distributors like Stoneway or like other distributors that were very large that could buy large purchases,
Yeah,
basically ran out all the manufacturers. So then you had this weird cycle of not being able to get parts. So then year two or year three go with COVID still around. Now you have manufacturers limiting purchases. Well, during COVID, most manufacturers were kind of slow, right?
Yeah.
So we had manufacturers that actually wouldn't let you buy more than what you had from the previous year. If you sold 100 of these last year in total, you can't order 1,000 of them. You can order 100 total
Yeah.
because that's what you purchased last year. So
E
we had a lot of weird dynamics of having to try to buy through. You have 17 locations in Washington, trying to buy them through a different branch so that we can get some, because we finally got busy again. Contractors in the valley started getting busier
yeah.
again, and we were ready to sell stuff. And we were having manufacturers actually telling us no. They were denying POs
I
of us
remember
trying to
that.
order more than we had ordered the previous year,
Yeah, I remember
because
that
they thought
because
we were just trying to buy them all because we wanted to. And it's like, no, we're finally getting busy. Yakima's open back up. Customers are ready to build,
yeah.
and we needed the parts, and it was very hard to get parts.
Yeah, it was. It was it was such an interesting time on so many levels, you know. I mean, it was it turns out that, everything they told us was a bunch of bullshit and we were gaslit, like, I mean, just call it what it is. I mean, that's how I feel about it. It was frustrating. I mean,
Very well.
like the way we had to navigate business at that time was it made everything 100 times harder, right? Like getting employees to come back to work after the shutdown, getting them to come back to work because, some people were scared, which was a valid thing at the time. Some people were scared. Other people thought it was bullshit. Like
Right,
a lot of people were in the middle,
right.
and then electricians were deemed essential. And so, they shut us down for a week and then I laid everybody off and then trying to get people back. It was a nightmare.
It was a disaster.
So we go from that scenario with employees and people being scared to, people making runs on all the parts houses and then not being able to get parts. And then, during that, like copper went nuts,
Yes, copper was
right?
going at an all-time because they had plants that were shut down, and then they finally went back, and they were having massive COVID outbreaks at these big facilities across the world, right? In
Yeah.
Chile and all these big plants are getting shut down. So then you have other US copper manufacturers trying to buy it from other mines. The
Yeah.
the price was like a heartbeat. I mean, it was
Yeah.
up and down and up, and there was no targeting in any pricing of copper during those times.
Yeah, I remember. So I had just landed the biggest project to date at that time, that Canyon Cliff project, and 144 unit apartment complex, multiple apartment buildings. And I remember having to go back to them and say, "Hey, copper prices are out of control. Like
Right.
I have to charge you more." Like, and it wasn't just me. It was, the plumbers with PEX. It was every trade across the board. And, like, thank goodness, we're working with, a good trusted contractor that understood those things and we are able to navigate through it together. But man, it was like, I remember having to back into all the bids and adjust all the wire pricing. And it just, it
I
was,
think it was hard for people to make money back then, because I know for a
yeah,
fact that we had manufacturers that we would buy parts from, already have it sold to a customer, and maybe even they've already paid their bill, and then we would get the bill from the manufacturer and it was higher
it was higher.
than what we had bought it for.
Yeah.
Because
Like,
by the time it actually shipped to us, there was increased in transit, your UPS, your
yeah.
all your big long haulers, like everybody, the gas prices were crazy, so we would get these bills after the fact that were actually more expensive.
I remember having those conversations with you back then about
Mhm.
that.
So it
And
was a
and
it
it
was a hard time to make money
it
back
it
then.
was our time to do business and just in general. And honestly, like, I feel like there's some things that changed during COVID that haven't went back, right?
There is definitely things that haven't gone
It
back.
and it never will. And that's kind of the frustrating part is, I mean, there's still some pieces of gear and some stuff that has crazy lead times, right? Like, I just talked to Trav about a piece of switchgear, and he's like, "Man, that's potentially 30 weeks out."
Yep.
And
I've
it's
heard from
like,
different PUDs that transformers, like your pad mount transformers and your PUD transformers across the board, are still really hard to get. I've heard dates still as of now that are out 2 or 3 years to get certain transformers
yeah,
from
see,
the
and
for
that
PUD power to get pulled to maybe a facility.
yeah, and that's wild. That's wild. So with those things, I mean, a lot of there's all kinds of economic things that play into this, right? But one of the things that me and you constantly talk about is the stock market and what copper's doing, right? Like what
Right.
commodities are doing. Because, as an electrical contractor, what wire costs are, some of our biggest material costs,
Yes.
right? And so that's something that you keep a pulse on, and you'll call me and you'll say, "Hey man, like copper did this, like Romex is probably going to spike. If you're going to buy it, buy it." Like
Right.
there's there's a ton of value there, right? Like just keeping a pulse on that and knowing what it's doing, because those things affect both of our industries.
100, and it's one of our I mean, as a distributor, typically your standard wholesale distributor, wire's gonna be one of their biggest lines. Wire's just expensive, so it's
Yeah.
gonna be one of their biggest dollar figures. And prior to COVID, I wasn't staring at the stock market.
Yeah,
There was
it
not
was
I'm on a normal basis. You and me have talked. It's a daily thing to look at what stock market's doing with your copper, your aluminum, your steel, to look at
yeah.
all that.
Yeah.
And I don't remember really focusing in on that prior to COVID. It wasn't something there was price increases. There was a mine in Chile or
But
whatever that
it
would get
was
shut down.
but from what I remember, increases, you'd get a yearly increase of like 1.5 to 3.5%.
Yep,
And it was like that, pretty consistent.
yep.
I'd get the call from my account manager at the time, John. He'd be like, "Hey, it's January, Square D is gonna be doing their standard 2% raise,"
Everything
or
was pretty
it was
standard.
pretty standard, right? And then it just went nuts. And
There's no
even
rhyme or reason. There's no rhyme or reason anymore why price increases happen. There's so much other stuff in the US going on with
yeah.
tariffs and trade deals that it's just all over. You almost can't put your finger on what a increase, what it's going to be, and when it's going to happen.
Because they just happen now, right? And they're substantial. Like you'll get like a 10% hike.
We've seen, yeah, that much
Larger
or
than that.
larger. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, and it's like it's just interesting how like that period, that COVID, because I still call that COVID blowover, right?
right.
Like it's still shaking things up, and it's still just way different now than it has been. And it's like you said, you can't really put your finger on it why. I mean, I'm sure there's economists and bean counters that could probably give you better explanations, but to the average guys like me and you, we're in the weeds. We're doing this stuff every day. Like I'm spending thousands of dollars on electrical parts. You're selling thousands of dollars of electrical parts. Like when the normal average dude like sits down and tries to figure it out, it's like there's just so many questions,
Right.
and it's frustrating because it's like you don't know what's true. You can't believe anything on the news anymore. You don't know when you're getting gaslit. I mean, it's so common now that it's like, okay, well, why is the stock market going nuts, or why did the bottom fall out? It's like, fuck, who knows?
Right.
It's frustrating.
And we all want to stay busy. And the thing that I always think of is what can the market handle? My thought is always like, at what point is the price going to be too high? When does it get to a point where the average consumer
Says no.
isn't going to build that building, or isn't going to, and we're already seeing that a little bit. There's definitely projects
Yes.
that have not gone in the state of Washington because of funding.
100%.
So at what point does it go more, where right now it could be 5 or 10% of the projects in Washington state maybe don't go because of private financing or funding with backing, to 25, 30% of the projects don't go.
Yeah. Yeah.
That affects us all. That affects our economy. That affects a lot of stuff in
It,
our state.
yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing, right? I think we are coming into that. Like, I feel like Yakima is always a couple of years behind, like what the rest of the nation's doing as far as, economic growth and economic slowdowns as well, right? Last year was definitely down from the previous year. I don't know, man. Like for us, like in our business, the interest rates like hinge a lot, right? And, being a company that does have a division that does new construction residential, a a huge turn down in those projects. And so we've had to pivot, and we're doing more service, we're doing more small projects. Like we've found ways to kind of fill those voids, but I'm having to get creative, and I'm having to drop margins on stuff to keep guys, in projects. And I'm willing to do that for my guys, but it's not like a plan that you want it to be a long-term plan.
No, it's not a business model you want
It's not a
to
sus
keep in stone.
Yeah,
Like, that's
it's
not
not a
what we're
sus
trying to do.
yeah, it's not a sustainable model, right? And so, yeah, man, those are all the questions that that kind of run through my head. It's like, okay, like when are rates going to come down, and when are they going to kind of push, let up on like some of the building codes? Because like the building codes that have happened the last few years have driven the cost to build a home up like 30%.
Right.
And that's it, and I'm not just pulling those numbers out of. It's like I have these conversations with general contractors all the time, like the guys who are pricing new builds, and they're in the weeds trying to make the numbers work too, so they can build a house for somebody.
Right.
And with all the energy codes and how much more efficient a house has to be, the more efficient HVAC systems, like the more efficient insulation, like all these things that some guys will argue aren't the best things for a house. But 30% is the number that gets tossed around.
Right.
And so, I mean,
It's
that's,
really hard for somebody to try to be a first time home buyer. They want to build their own first home and they want to do that. The cost of it is just so expensive.
oh, it is.
They can try to do the legwork, get a quote from WattSmart, go to their local lumber store, get a takeoff on all
Yeah.
the building materials, be their own general, and do all that. And the number they come up with is still way higher than it was prior to COVID. It has
Yeah.
just gone so high where it just makes it too hard for somebody to get into that first time house, or maybe
Absolutely.
even move from an older house and they want to get something into a newer house. They have a family and they want to get into a newer house. It's just there's no way to try to save money on it because there's not a huge savings. The cost of it is so expensive now that now they're not going to become their own general and then sub it all out and
Yeah.
save $500,000 on their house. Those days
Those days are gone.
they're totally gone.
Yeah, those days are gone. I mean, you can still, save some money by doing it yourself if you have those capabilities, but the amount of people that like have those skills to like
Right.
like me or you could do that because we've been around all the trades for so long, and like we know the people, and it's but for the average guy that is not that doesn't have those connections and doesn't have those things, that's really hard.
Yeah, because I mean I've seen where just our electrical parts are going. Like what we used to be able to do a service change for or a brand new house or a brand new building. I mean, it's just so much more expensive.
Yeah. Well, and like we've been talking about, the costs of wire and electrical costs through COVID, but the thing that we didn't touch on is lumber went bananas.
Lumber was crazy.
Like and so it's like pretty much every piece of construction material went nuts,
Yes.
right? And the things that we're still battling is this roller coaster of pricing, right? It's like, copper's up, then it's down, aluminum's up, then it's down. And it's like we're having these conversations like bi-weekly, like, hey, what's it doing? What do you see? And it's like, man, dude, I mean, that's just part of it. And I'm used to it now. But 3, 4, 5 years ago before COVID, that's not how it was.
Yeah, prior to COVID, I could definitely say that people did their purchasing different from an electrical contractor side or even a distributor side by buying bulk and buying a lot of stuff. But right now, it's such a roller coaster ride that
Yeah.
I wouldn't tell anybody right now to buy your 2 year supply of anything or your 1 year supply of anything unless you truly knew. If you had some trade secrets and you could do something, there may be some avenues for it. But as a whole, no.
Yeah.
It's too unknown at the moment, and it's been like
Absolutely.
that ever since prior to COVID. Somebody could buy a lumber package to build their house. They may buy it a year in advance, buy the trusses, buy the whole job because that's how they saved money.
Right.
You don't save money by doing that anymore because the
Because it's
pricing
so
is
up and
just
down. I
it
mean,
could it could fall tomorrow.
yeah, I mean, you could buy $50,000 worth of Romex today, and
Yep.
3 days from now, the copper market could go 20% the other way, and then you'd be sitting on shit that you overpaid for.
Yep. It wasn't too long ago. I believe it was the end of the year. I mean, everybody has online. They can look at social media and look at a lot of different things. And I saw
Yeah.
people that were talking about trying to buy a bunch of fuel because fuel was so expensive. They were going to buy drums of fuel. Well, now in the Yakima Valley, fuel's cheaper than I've seen in a long time.
Right.
So why would you have I mean, it goes the same way with copper, with anything else.
Yeah.
We just don't know what the market's going to do. There's no crystal ball to tell you to go buy a
No.
whole bunch of something
Yeah.
because even if it's cheap, could go cheaper, could go less expensive at some
Yeah.
point.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a good point, man. I mean, we've had that conversation I mean, we have that conversation every month, I swear, but I'm not bulk buying anything right now. I'm just kind of forecasting out the projects I have for the next month. I'll do some wire buys. I'm just kind of playing it very conservative,
Right.
like for that reason versus in years past, like, if copper's down and, we have a good forecast, like I'll drop 40 grand on copper and sit on it, but
Yep.
I'm not doing that right now.
It's just too unknown.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, man, that's all super interesting stuff to talk about. I mean, a lot of it's frustrating stuff, but um it's what we deal with now. It's just part of doing business now, right?
Yeah, the sales cycle just changed. It was so much different, and actually, it was a lot funner prior to COVID.
Yeah,
We would sit down with jobs, we would take off jobs together, you build partnerships, and you take off jobs together, and we just kind of everybody stayed in their lane, and you had a lot of projects. There was just a lot of business in the area or even out a little bit outside the area, and everybody just kinda did their jobs, and everything seemed more smooth sailing.
right.
And now it's just so much different. It just changed how we go to business, how contractors go to business.
Yeah, so I mean, one of the things that comes to mind with that and and this happened with my business banker actually, but do do you think that that times have changed as to like the relationship for some people isn't as important as the pricing? Because like I know in years past where it's been good years and I'll put stuff out for quote and if you're 5% high, it's like, you know what? Like they do such a good job for me that it is what it is, man. Like I want to keep everybody honest, but there's been times where it's like for 5%, I'm still going to give Tyler the order because of our
Right.
relationship. The unfortunate part of like where business has gotten the last couple of years is there are times where it's like I can't afford to do that. And so have you noticed that though more with
I've noticed it more now, and I feel like it starts at the owner or general contractor level. So
huh?
basically, when you start there, before they may have always had Smart Electric do all their work. Well, as jobs got tighter, you have owners wanting more different developers or different general contractors to come in and start quoting some of their work. Then it's the snowball effect. Now they're going to go to a bunch of different electrical contractors and a bunch of different HVAC contractors and plumbing
100%.
outfits. And in the beginning, when everybody's so busy, you keep all your numbers the same and maybe you don't get that job. But as people stop getting work, is when they still try to have the relationships, but there's just some things that maybe Stoneway can't get to, or maybe
Yeah.
another distributor can't get to.
Yeah.
So it's just made everybody has to be really creative now. I just think that's the sales cycle that changed where it's gotten difficult is everybody has to be a little bit more creative. You can't just
Yeah.
work off relationship. You can. We always try to be creative. We don't always try to sell by the dollar. Maybe we're going to store a whole bunch of stuff, or maybe we're going to deliver it or put a Connex on the job site for free or whatever we're going to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
You have to try to get creative because you may not always have that bottom dollar.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's I mean, the last couple years, that's happened to me multiple times where it's like when it's so busy, people are just paying you because 'cause you're willing to show up, right? It's like, "Hey, these guys do a
Yep.
good job, they're gonna show up, I'm not
Right.
gonna beat them up on price."
Right.
But but now we're at a point with the economy to where previously to the last couple of years, I mean, I would be the only guy bidding some jobs.
Hmm.
And I would get them by default, right?
Right.
"Hey, he's got a good reputation, he's been referred by somebody else, the price is the price," right? Like, we
Right.
can't even get another guy to show up.
Right.
Well, now it's the complete opposite of that, right? There's 5 guys bidding on a $2,500 hot tub circuit. So, it's interesting how that has changed, and you're 100% right. It does start at the general contractor level or the homeowner, the end user level, where it's like they're watching their pocketbook, and so they're gonna wait for 3 bids now.
Right.
And so, yeah, man, the trickle down effect. I mean, I have a customer that I really like doing business with in Ellensburg, and he had a housing development and he was rolling, and um, things started getting tighter, and then pretty soon it's like there's other contractors knocking on his door, like, "Hey, let me give you a number for that." But the previous couple of years, those guys weren't there when it was busy. Like they weren't maintaining schedule. Like they didn't spend the years building that relationship with that person, but what has happened is when it slows down like this is those contractors that have lost work, they start cold calling. They start dropping off cards on job sites. And then that general contractor is looking at it like, well, rates are higher now. I'm having a hard time selling that house right down the road that's finished. If I could save 10 grand by getting a couple of different new subs in here, that's 10 more grand that I put in my pocket. And so, yeah, man, I mean, I've lost customers because of that.
Right.
And it's like there's always somebody who's going to do it cheaper. And I've never wanted to be the contractor that sells on like cheap,
Right.
but just like the way the economy is, it's like you have to get creative.
You have to get very because it
Yeah.
I feel like COVID was almost kind of like in 2008 when the market crashed real bad and everything, the economy was really bad. COVID was like on steroids, obviously. But in between those cycles, n- you didn't quote the small commodities like you're talking about.
Yeah.
Those are just items that need to be on the job to be on the job. All your basic commodity parts. We weren't quoting those when I was just an inside sales guy or a counter guy.
Yeah. It was like, hey,
I
just
didn't
give me
get
those.
calls to quote bushings and lock nuts and different things. But now, with the price just all over the place, people don't know what it is. So you'll get the call for the $20 item. Hey, what's the price on one of those?
Yeah.
It used to not be like that. There should be no reason why electrical distributor doesn't sell smaller commodities with very high GP, right? They're just small items, your lock nuts and your plastic bushings and all your
Yeah.
funny stuff. We all should be making money on that because it sits on our shelf and it's just a commodity.
Right.
But now we're quoting that type of item.
Yeah. So
So
that's just
that's just
another
changed.
yeah, so that's just another kind of sign of like where that's like something that's an indicator, right? It
Yep.
just kind of shows the temperature of things like altogether.
Yes.
Yeah. It's interesting how that works. And like it'll be interesting to see um if it goes the other way, right? Like if we do hit another big uptick in the economy, whether that's a year, 2 years from now, if rates do get under control and then we see a bunch of building going on. It'll be interesting to see what that looks like on the flip side of this.
Right.
Yeah.
Hopefully it can get driven a little bit from the legislation side. I mean, we live in Washington. We've lived here our whole lives, right?
Yeah.
And Washington is just a really hard state. There's some states that are just rocking and rolling. I mean, we're owned by Crescent Electric, so they're across the whole US. And there's
Yeah.
certain pockets in the country that are just rocking and rolling. They're having a good time. They're selling lots of parts. The economy's stronger. It's just going different. Washington's legislation is just really hard.
Yeah,
The
it
building
is.
permit process, how expensive everything is.
The building codes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just a little bit harder in Washington. And in Yakima, like you said, we're always kind of behind. We kind of when it happens over in Seattle, we're kind of in the trickle down effect of a couple years later, we finally feel the heat of some legislation that maybe happened in Olympia. But
Right.
Washington, as I see it, is just a skosh harder, and our economy isn't as stronger as other parts of the country.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's apparent. Yeah. Um, so tell me about that transition. So you went from general manager and then you wanted to get back into outside
Right.
sales. Did that decision kind of hinge around like some of the challenges that we have been having?
So personally, for the last, I don't know, couple years, I wanted to get more what hooked me in the beginning of the customer facing. I did as much as I could at the branch level as trying to get in front of customers, but I feel like in the 10 years that I managed the branch, I did a really good job. I mean,
Yeah, absolutely.
we hit our budgets that we want. We brought a new product. I hired a lot of people, fired a lot of people. I mean, we ran the Yakima branch at a good level. To do all that takes work. So
Yeah.
you can't get in front of the customers as much. You got to make sure you're running a good branch. There's a lot of financial stuff involved. There's product. There's just
Yeah,
there's meetings. There's a
just
lot of stuff.
yeah, there's employee stuff, right? Like
Right.
you're dealing with all the
So I could only
employees.
dabble in the customer facing role of either we call it outside sales or account management. I only could ever dabble in it. I tried as much as I could to be in front of it,
Yeah.
but I still needed to run a branch. So for the last couple of years, I just felt like I wanted to get back into that customer facing role. I wanted to be in front of the customer.
Yeah.
So I kind of hinted it around, and I wasn't gonna leave the company to find that role. It was, I've been with Stoneway for a long time, so I wanted to give my company the shot at, putting me into that role. So
Yeah,
when the
absolutely.
opportunity came about, I jumped on it. There was
Yeah.
not a lot of thought to it of, hey, let's go to more of an outside sales account management role, and you know, I ran for it.
Yeah, no, and that makes sense, man, and that's it's gotta be a little, nicer of a gig too, right? Like, you're out on the jobs again, you're
Yep.
meeting customers, I know you're stopping by the office here,
Right. I'm not stuck.
like
I'm not stuck in an office. I get to go
yeah,
out. I want to be on job sites. I want to be here to help. Like it's that customer facing role where you can truly try to help on a project.
yeah,
So that's where I really want to be to help design, help to be there. I mean, or help to bring a delivery over. I mean, there's just a lot of other stuff you can do that's not, pushing paper in an office
yeah,
or
absolutely.
managing people. And
Yeah,
now I can worry about my customers and myself and my family. I feel like for me personally, it was a mental thing also. I feel like it's a better move for me and my family,
yeah,
and then me and me and my customers,
yeah.
because I can be more focused.
Yeah, be more focused and just be happier, right?
Right.
Like, I know, like, the last few years, like, it's been challenging for everybody, just especially when you're in an industry like this where, you're relying on sales and you're relying on but your contractors can only do as much as the jobs they're landing.
Right.
And so it's like this trickle down effect and then, like, everybody feels it.
Right.
So,
Yeah, you
yeah.
can't force people to build or force people to buy from you if there's no industry. If the industry's slow,
Yeah.
it's and at a branch management level, that's really rough. You're
Yeah.
you're going for the whole branch, and I mean, saving money on fuel and on your power bill and on your gas bill. There's just a lot of other stuff. And now with sales, it's just trying to be creative and take care of customers.
Yeah.
Find out
No.
what their needs are, what their needs that maybe they're not getting down the road, or needs that maybe they're not getting from you. It's definitely eye opening to see even what's not that you're not doing. So it's a good learning experience for sure. I'm still really fresh in it. I've only been doing it for 6 or 7 months now, so
Yeah.
it's still going to be time. Still kind of getting my ropes, getting used to it. I guess I would say.
Right on. Right on. Dude, you've built a great life for yourself, man. Beautiful family, beautiful home. Like, you're killing it in life, man. Like, if you could talk to that young guy that's, out of high school, getting a job, whether it's in the trades or maybe, a guy that's going into the distribution side of it, um, what advice would you give that person, man? Like from your standpoint, like, what are the things that you've done, and what are the things that you would tell somebody to kinda do in their life in order just to be adulting at a high level like you are?
I feel like a lot of people take it for granted. So hard work. It always comes down to hard work. When you work really hard and you're an honest person, you have to be honest and not try to talk yourself into a way that maybe gives you a pass.
Yeah,
So always the hard work. I feel like I mean, I didn't go to college, didn't get a business degree to come work at Stoneway to do business. I earned my spot by working really hard.
yeah,
And I feel like the younger generation doesn't really get the hard work. There's so many rules now with, let's say, with companies with HR and all the time you can take, all the stuff that our state has for us. Do the right thing and don't pin, the owner of a company or the owner of a business, if you're working for them, don't pin that against them that you can almost take advantage of people. Work hard, and your hard work will be your success. You will go far in this industry, in any industry, by hard work and being an honest person.
yeah,
I mean, I feel like that's what got me how I am today, is just being honest, not trying to leverage myself to hop, skip, and jump above people to get promotions by lying or by doing whatever. It's hard work and being truthful.
yeah, that's great, man, and would you say consistently doing those things?
You have to stay, yeah, you need to do that in your personal life. I feel like it always, if you do it just at home or just at work or just with certain friends or did with different people, that has to be your lifestyle. If you're getting out of high school, whatever your trade needs to be, stay honest. Stay honest with yourself too. If that isn't a good fit to you to be electrician and your heart's not in it, you're never going to be a very good electrician if your heart's not truly in it. If you don't like electrical work, or if you don't like people, you're not going to be good in the electrical distribution side, because
Yeah.
we deal with people. You may
all
be a
the
really hard
time.
worker, but you're not being truthful.
Yeah.
It's not in your heart. So you have to really go after what, what gives you a spark. You need that dopamine hit to get excited to go to
Yeah.
work and be in that moment and be true to yourself. I mean, I see a lot of people that maybe go to college or go down a certain road, and they're not doing that. It's because they followed their heart. They may go to college to do law enforcement, and now they're in a electrical wholesale house selling parts because they love people and that's just what they want to do.
Yeah.
So just follow your heart and be truthful, and then work really hard,
Yeah. Right on, man.
and don't take advantage of maybe your bosses or your owners. I mean, don't try to hop skip. There's no shortcuts in life. I mean, we always talk about there really isn't a true you may shortcut a small step of your life, but in the true reality of it, there's no shortcuts. You
Yeah.
work hard, you'll get rewarded, guaranteed.
Yeah, that's such good valuable advice. I mean, there really aren't any shortcuts. It's all I mean, it's a long road of, stacking small wins and being consistent in your life, your personal life, your professional life, showing up daily, in and out, and putting in good effort to get to a point where you can kind of start reaping some of those rewards, and that's one thing that I want to leave people with is uh consistency, guys, whether that's in your fitness, in your career, in your personal life, in your relationships. That's one area that I'm really trying to work on is my relationships, but being consistent, like showing up for yourself consistently, putting in the work consistently, and like Tyler said, being honest and working hard. And if you can put those things together consistently, uh, the world is going to reward you. I truly feel that in my heart that if you're doing the right things day in and day out, like the world's going to reward.
100%.
All right, guys, that's what I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked the show, if you found value, give us a like, give us a follow, and tell your friends. This is Josh at Wired Wasmart.